Thank you. So we're going to present about this survey paper, which reviews the last 10 years of ISMAR publications. So this is a collaborative work for myself and Mark Billinghurst and Gerd, Bruder and Hennieder and Greg Welch. So Mark and I will share this stage and then present about this review work together. So basically through this paper we wanted to answer these three questions. So ISMAR has been around, ISMAR community has been around for more than 20 years now, since 1998. So we want to answer where were we before, and then where are we now, and then where are we going from now. So first of all, where were we before? So 10 years ago in 2008, ZHOU et al. Actually presented a survey paper which names is Trends in Augmented Reality Tracking, Interaction, and Displays. So they reviewed the ISMAR proceedings from the first decades, 1998 through 2007, and then they categorized the research topics from all the proceedings, and then identify the major research area and what area is actually impactful for the community. And then this paper itself actually has a very high citation, so it actually influenced our community, ISMAR community, by reviewing the previous 10 years. And then they found 11 key research topics at the time. So first 5 is a kind of major of key topics: tracking, interaction, calibration, application, and displays. And also they defined 6 more secondary research topics at the time. At the time, the paper focused on the major 3 aspects: tracking, interaction, and displays. And then after reviewing the first decade's papers, and then they predicted this, they kind of suggested new predictions at the time. So something like tracking, for tracking recognition system, more recognition systems for tracking, and then tracking without known features like SLAM technology. And interaction, they kind of predicted new techniques for the ubiquitous computing, and then techniques for using the tangible interface, something like that. And then, so what we want to do through this paper is we want to check where are we now for reviewing, while reviewing the past 10 years of proceedings. So we wanted to answer these 3 questions. Were there any changes in research trends in ISMAR community? And also, are there any new research area that we can introduce and found from the previous 10 years? And then we wanted to highlight what are the key developments and challenges from the past 10 years. So first we wanted to review all the papers quickly, and then analyze the high-level trend. So we basically classified the research topics among the 264 ISMAR papers from 2008 to 2017, and then try to identify new topics by like keyword analysis. And then we also analyzed the impact of the research by checking the citation count of all the papers. And then second part of the paper is about the review work, like a review of the highly impacted papers, which has more citation, average citation per year, or selected papers like awarded papers. So we found on top of the 11 existing topics from the previous, the first decade review paper, we found 4 new topics. So we wanted to introduce these new topics, which are perception and collaboration, or social and reconstruction and modeling. So this is a high-level trend analysis, topic distribution. So if you want to look at the details, please refer to the actual paper. I'm not going to talk about the details, but what I wanted to say So basically, we wanted to say the most top 5 popular research area, which is tracking, evaluation, rendering, and application, and interaction. So compared to the previous years, the first decade, we found the significant increase of research in evaluation and rendering topics, while the calibration and so yeah, we found a significant increase in evaluation and mobile and rendering, while we lose calibration and display topics. And then, so here's a detailed review. So we wanted to, we cannot describe all the details of the previous work, so I'm gonna just briefly mention about the key papers. So in terms of the tracking, we found the trend, the 3 major trends like SLAM, simultaneous location and mapping, and RGBD camera, use of RGBD and reconstruction, and hybrid tracking and mobile platform. So these 3 papers are major. The first one is P-Tom from George Klein and Murray, 2009, which is a breakthrough for using this SLAM technology. So these days, a lot of people just always use the SLAM technology. And the second one is the famous Kinect fusion paper, which is the most highly cited paper in ISMAR, more than 300 citations per year. And the third one is, yesterday Daniel got the award based on this paper, so pose estimation in mobile devices. And interaction, there are a bunch of different interaction methods like tangible UI and mid-air interaction, just like we saw in the morning from Banco's presentation. So there are much like different techniques of the interaction, and then they also surveyed about the interaction techniques. And then they found like the mobile UI is still kind of like difficult to use, and then mid-air, like there is a trend to use this mid-air interaction. And displays, and mainly like spatial AR and HMD displays are introduced, like used for a while. And then mainly the Henry Fuchs played important role in this area to make these displays better in terms of the accuracy and the quality of graphics. And also, of course, there are lots of applications which you can review. You can refer to the actual paper. But what I wanted to say at this point, we've been always looking for a killer app for the augmented reality or mixed reality. But these days, a lot of like application has been introduced. So people kind of understand that these days AR or mixed reality is kind of a new media to communication. So it's more like not just a killer app, but it's more like the general media that we can use for our everyday lives. So next part is about where are we going. So Mark will be presenting about this next part.
Thanks, Kangsoo, that was great. The last part of the presentation, we're going to talk about where we're going to go, and we're trying to predict forward a little bit what will be important trends. So we've talked already about how we have these research directions we've identified. 10 years ago when ZHOU'S published their paper, they talked about tracking, interaction, and display, and they identified these areas as the important areas for research. So what I want to do just for a second is show actually how many papers in the 10 years since that time have actually done research in these areas. So you can see here, for example, with tracking, almost nobody has done research in ubiquitous tracking, but a lot of tracking papers in recognition systems and SLAM-based tracking. Similar with interaction, almost no studies on social, cultural impacts of AR or new interaction techniques based on ubiquitous computing. And with displays, there's very little actual HMD research presented in ISMAR. So if you want to look for gaps where you do research, these would be the good areas to do some research where not much has been published. We also made some predictions of our own, and they'll probably also be made wrong in 10 years' time, but we'll see what happens. So for new tracking directions, we thought that based on what has been done already and what the research trends we saw, there's a need to move beyond object tracking into context-aware AR and tracking based on understanding of the surroundings. Secondly, there's also a need to do research in more advanced computer vision and sensor fusion techniques, such as combining artificial intelligence and deep learning for tracking. In the interaction space, there's a need to do more research in multimodal interfaces and bidirectional interaction. So this is where the virtual objects can actually affect things in the real world. And finally, looking at interactions to go beyond the typical real-world interaction, such as a brain-computer interaction or brain-computer interfaces. In new display directions, there were two areas we identified. First of all, looking at important research directions for HMDs in terms of things like field of view or resolution, and then light field displays were another important topic. Here's a paper from Ito and Klinker that gives an example of a good light field research paper. And application directions, previously there'd been a lot of applications focused on domain-specific research. We felt that there's a lot of work that needs to be done in general use cases that go beyond domain-specific research, such as using AR as a social medium, and also more user studies of consumer applications. And then for new evaluation directions, there's a lot of research that's been done in novel evaluation techniques, ethnographic studies. There is very little research that's been done to date on collaborative AR systems. Less than 2% of all the papers published in ISMAR are collaborative papers. And there's a lot of work being done on exploring the social and cultural impacts of AR and evaluating human perception. And then finally, the last topic, which is a new topic, was the new rendering and visualization directions. And we identified two areas there. One was looking at scene acquisition and the physical virtual relationship of the scene to improve the quality. For example, using scene capture to estimate lighting and having that lighting to relight the virtual objects. And then a second area is expanding the range of rendering beyond visible graphics. And this paper from Radaki and all from last year is a good example of that. This was the Sonic Eye paper, where they had people pushing a needle into a gel and using sonification and audio output to give them feedback about how far they should push the needle into the gel. So we should be looking at other rendering beyond visible graphics, such as olfactory, tactile, or audio rendering. So those are our predictions for important areas for the future. I'll just turn the remaining time over to Kangsoo, and he'll wrap it up.
Thanks. So I'm going to wrap it up. So we've been seeking for this answer for these three questions: any changes in research trend, any new research areas, and any key development and challenges. So through the paper, we've been touch upon these answers. So we found a new trend like rendering and evaluation increased a lot in terms of the volume of research, and new research like the reconstruction or the modeling, those kind of thing has been introduced. And also we reviewed all the details of the major development throughout the previous 10 years. But the last take-home message that we want to say is a lot of people think this ISMAR conference is like a tracking conference. So a lot of people, of course, tracking is important and influential, but at this point what we wanted to say is a lot of research has happened so far, and then we're moving towards more like a mature technology in ISMAR community. So we need more like a rigorous evaluation in user studies and perception studies, and also interactions at the same time. Just like Banko's talk in the so that's all. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot for the very interesting talk, and I think it's a great starting point for everyone who's starting in AR to read your paper, because I think it's giving a really good overview of the field. So I think because of the technical problems that we had, we still have maybe a minute for one question. So anyone has a question for the authors? Maybe a quick one. Okay, so then maybe I'm just asking one question that I was just wondering when you did your research, what was the most surprising that you found? Because I assume, especially with all the experts that were involved in this paper, was it something that was still surprising to you, or is it basically you knew all the topics already before, or was it something that you didn't expect it?
We actually, the first three authors actually reviewed all the papers together. And then at the beginning, I didn't really expect, I have my own expectation at the time, but it was quite different from what we actually found here. So I was expecting like maybe some perception study, maybe more like, that's kind of pretty much the same what we found, but we didn't really expect this evaluation or rendering has increased that much. So I think it's for us, I think it's a good sign. It seems like the augmented reality or mixed reality technology is getting better and mature based on the findings like increased user study or rendering, which is very close to the end user's experience. So I think so. Yeah.
Great, thanks a lot. Let's thank the speaker again, or the speaker, sorry.